questions. Do you think that Holocaust education in our schools is a DEI program? There's no card for that. That's just yes or no.
I can look at it whatever card
Holocaust
I choose.
education, is it a DEI?
Much.
You can have a press conference to say whatever you want. I just need a quick answer to this.
Your soliloquy
is Holocaust, because this is my time, is Holocaust education a DEI program?
No.
Is African American Studies a DEI program?
I think I answered that with one
I'm
of the
asking
other
it again.
cards. Listen, we should
Just
be able,
yes or no?
We should be able to teach courses
My
in their
point is
entirety.
they are DEI programs, both of them, because students need diversity, equity, and inclusion to understand their environments. So both Holocaust education and the teaching of African American...
Hey, Patriots. Welcome back to the channel, where we talk about the truth in America, defend our Constitution, and stand up for the values that make this country great. If you love freedom, faith, and family, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a video. Today, I want to talk about a recent congressional hearing that's making the rounds online. A hearing where Representative Jahana from Connecticut just unloaded on the Secretary of Education. I watched the whole thing, took notes, and let me tell you, this is exactly why we're in the mess we're in with American education. She goes on about test scores, local control, civil rights, DEI programs, charter schools, and, of course, budget cuts. But what she's really upset about, the possibility that the Department of Education might actually shrink or, God forbid, be eliminated. Let's break down what's really going on here from a patriotic, constitutional, and common sense perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Secretary, welcome to our committee. It's interesting, I took a lot of notes. I had prepared questions, but I think I'm going in a very different direction. We've heard other colleagues talk about the NAEP scores, and I heard you say that the president was angered and embarrassed by these, and I think we all should be. But when you disaggregate those scores, they clearly show that low-income students score significantly lower than their white and higher-income peers, and that is mostly in part to ongoing disparities in educational access and quality, which makes much of what I'm hearing today that much more relevant. You mentioned Connecticut. We both come from the state of Connecticut. Connecticut relies on property taxes to fund education, and we have one of the largest income gaps in the nation, which means by design or default, low-income students face multiple challenges, including limited access to resources and opportunities outside of schools, which is why I don't understand many of the decisions made in this budget. One of my colleagues asked about collecting data on family composition and background. The Department of Education Office of Civil Rights is mandated by law to do that. I was pleased to hear you say that states do not, the Department of Education does not control curriculum, instruction, instructional materials, the teachers that are hired, which makes your words contradictory because every argument you have is to put local control back into the states. But states already have local control, as anyone who has any knowledge or background of education would already know. The role of the Department of Education would be the civil rights enforcement of those local controls, which again, the irony of this budget zeroing out American history and civic education programs when you couldn't even answer a question about Ruby Bridges or the election of President Biden, which are as basic as it gets. So I really, really don't understand it. But you are making the argument for me because when you respond to questions from my colleagues by saying that sounds like an issue for state legislatures, that is why the Office of Civil Rights is necessary, because state legislatures made the decision that Ruby Bridges did not have the right to a free and appropriate, high-quality public education. So you, Madam Secretary, are actually making the argument for the role of the department, not to dictate local curriculum instruction or instructional materials, but to make sure that those things are carried out by the department. That states follow the law, that they are doing those things. So 49 million children in this country receive public education services. About 3 million children are in charter schools. There are not enough charter school slots. So my questions are mainly focused on what about those other 46 million children. So it's mind-blowing. I hear you talk about safety, keeping students safe on school campuses, but not a word about the 390,000 students who have been affected by gun violence. I was in the classroom on the day Sandy Hook happened, and the federal government came in with almost $2 million to rebuild that community and provide programs for the surrounding communities. In your opening, I heard you mention student athletes and LGBTQ students twice, not one word. And even when my colleague asked you if you thought it was a public health crisis, you can't answer questions that affect the majority of students. So I'm not really sure. I mean, I am an educator by nature. I try to be supportive of what the Department of Education does because I need for you to succeed, for my students to succeed. But when you come in and say your final mission is to eliminate the department, it says to me that the 46 million children that are not receiving services do not matter. I've ran out most of my time, but this bill defunds literacy programs, eliminates 21st Century Community Learning Center, eliminates preschool grants for children with disabilities, eliminates, reduces funding for career and technical education, like all of these things. I'm going to ask you two really quick questions. Do you think that Holocaust education in our schools is a DEI program? There's no card for that. That's just yes or no.
I can look at whatever card I
Holocaust
choose.
education,
Thank
is
you
it a
very
DEI?
much.
You can have a press conference to say whatever you want. I just need a quick answer to
Your
this.
soliloquy
Is
is very
Holocaust,
informative.
because this is my time, is Holocaust education a DEI program?
No.
Is African American Studies a DEI
I
program?
think I answered that with one
I'm
of the
asking
other
it again.
callers. Listen, we should
Just
be able,
yes or no?
we should be able to teach
My
courses in their
point is they
entirety.
are DEI programs, both of them, because students need diversity, equity, and inclusion to understand their environments. So both Holocaust education and the teaching of African American history are important, which is why the state of Connecticut requires it in our social studies curriculum. You're talking out of both sides of your mouth. You can't support one
The
without
gentlelady's
supporting the
time has
other.
expired.
And looking at what happens in the schools and actually deferring to teachers, parents who are on curriculum committees, local boards of education in states who actually do the hard work
The
and
gentlelady's time
listening
has
to what
expired.
they say
I appreciate
would be
the
incredibly helpful in
Passion,
this
but
role.
it's time to move on.
I yield back.
I recognize the
First, Hayes talks about the NAEP test scores, saying low-income students score lower than their white and higher-income peers. Folks, nobody wants to see kids fail, but let's be honest. Throwing more money and more federal bureaucracy at the problem has not fixed it. We've spent trillions on education since the 1960s, and what do we have? Test scores that are flat or declining, violence in schools, and kids who graduate without basic skills. The answer isn't more Washington, D.C. control. The answer is strong families, discipline, and local schools that reflect their community's values, not some one-size-fits-all social engineering experiment. Hayes complains that property taxes fund Connecticut schools, leading to income gaps. Well, that's called local control. That's called community investment. Why should hardworking Americans in safe, successful communities have their money siphoned off to failing bureaucracies in other places? You want to solve income gaps? Get government out of the way. Cut taxes. Let parents choose the best school for their kids. Public, private, charter, or homeschool. That's freedom. That's the American way. Hayes claims the Department of Education's only real job is civil rights enforcement. Patriots, that's the problem. Every time the federal government gets involved in civil rights enforcement in schools, it ends up imposing new mandates, new rules, and new leftist ideology in every classroom in America. Remember, the Department of Education didn't even exist until Jimmy Carter in 1979. Somehow America became the greatest country in the world without it. We don't need Washington telling us how to teach our kids. We need parents and local communities in charge. She goes after charter schools, claiming there aren't enough slots and demanding to know what happens to the other students. Here's the thing. The left fights against charter schools and school choice at every turn. They want everyone stuck in the same broken system, all for the teachers' unions and bureaucrats. On school safety, Hayes brings up 390,000 students affected by gun violence. Patriots, no one supports violence. But let's be clear, the federal government can't keep our schools safe. Only strong local communities, parents, and, yes, good guys with legal firearms can keep our kids safe. Disarming law-abiding citizens won't stop criminals. Enforcing discipline in schools and supporting law enforcement will. Now, here's where she really shows her hand. Hayes is furious that the proposed budget cuts literacy programs, after-school programs, preschool grants, and, God forbid, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, initiatives like African American studies and Holocaust education. Look, nobody is saying we shouldn't teach history or teach about the horrors of the Holocaust or the struggles of African Americans. But when these programs get hijacked by leftist activists, they become more about indoctrination than education. They push guilt, division, and grievance instead of unity, pride, and American values. DEI isn't about inclusion. It's about separating kids by skin color and turning them against their own country. Enough is enough. Hayes claims the Department of Education's elimination would hurt 46 million kids. Let me ask you, how is the department helping now? Are our kids reading better? Are our schools safer? Are our communities stronger? Every dollar that goes to DC bureaucrats is a dollar not going to teachers, classrooms, or the kids who need it most. The best thing we can do is decentralize education, put parents, teachers, and local boards back in charge. That's what made America great. So what's the answer? Defend local control. Parents and communities know best. Fund students, not systems. Let the money follow the child. Charter, private, home, or public. Teach American values. Unity, freedom, opportunity, not division, grievance, or victimhood. Eliminate bureaucracy. The Department of Education is a failed experiment. Let's end it and return power to the people. If you agree, share this video, comment below, and tell Congress we want our schools back. Thanks for watching, Patriots. Stand strong, stand free, and God bless America.